All right, welcome back to Texas A&M Aggies Live, part of the Voice of College Football Network. First of all, Happy New Year to everybody out there. I'm your host, Cameron Honesty, joined by my co-host, as always, Cannon Torres. And we are heading into the most important time of the year for most schools who are not still in the college football playoff right now. The transfer portal is about to open on Friday. You and I have both been hearing a ton of stuff coming out about, A&M being connected to several players, but the biggest news to drop, obviously, this week was former Texas A&M commit and Auburn wide receiver Cam Coleman, who's both of us, I think, were kind of shocked that he actually entered the transfer portal, especially after Auburn hired Alex Golesh, who's, an offensive mind, somebody who you would think most of these star players on that side of the ball would at least stick around to see what he can offer or what he can do for them. But I mean, I feel bad for anybody covering Auburn right now because it's been pretty ugly with some of the guys leaving, especially one of their five-star quarterbacks and just a ton of talent. But Coleman is very interesting, right? Because again, he was a Texas A&M commit during the final year. Well, actually, before Jimbo Fisher was fired, actually a couple of months before that, he committed in the summer. I think it was July 4th of 2023. One of the most talented prospects in the last 10 years, in my opinion, just kind of a freak of nature at that position, is a true X receiver, somebody who is really a game changer in the right offense. I think Auburn just having bad quarterback play has really hindered his ability to reach his full potential. And I think he just saw the writing on the wall, even though they probably have a brighter future under Golesh, I think. I don't know. I mean, Golesh is still a young guy. Again, offensive coach who's a little more innovative maybe than Hugh Freeze. You would think, okay, guys would stick around, think, hey, you know what? Maybe we're going to get better here. Maybe we're going to actually have an offense that can contend with the rest of the SEC and actually help our good defense not, look basically that's not be one-dimensional. But for A&M, we talked about it after they lost to Miami that this wide receiver core, as quick and fast and electric as they are, Marcel Reed was really missing a big target in the passing game. They've not had an X receiver in a while, to be honest, since Noah Thomas left. And Thomas at that time was really the only reliable wide receiver amongst a bunch of, kind of mid-transfer additions. So, look, it's going to cost a lot of money for whoever wants Cam Coleman. Right now, early predictions, according, I think there was an On3 article I actually wrote about a couple of days ago. It's been so busy, so I've been writing a lot. That basically said Texas and A&M are the early contenders. Basically, they have the offenses and the quarterbacks that Coleman's kind of looking to play with. Obviously, a lot of people are going to say, well, Arch Manning may be a little better right now, especially the way he played at the Cheez-It Bowl. Look, Marcel Reed did show this season that he can be a very good quarterback when he has the right players around him, when he has the blocking in front of him. He obviously wasn't great at the end of the season, but getting a guy like Cam Coleman could be, a game changer, as they say, for his development and help take A&M's offense to that next level.
Yeah, and he is someone that Auburn fans wanted to take them to the next level, but they just didn't have that consistent quarterback play with Peyton Thorne and their slew of quarterbacks that they had to go through this past season. So when you look at Cam Coleman, who is a true X receiver at 6'4", you are like, hey, this guy has been making play after play, even with the quarterbacks that were going through the Auburn program. We saw him make an incredible one-handed catch on, even though it was a true freshman cornerback. I think it was in the, when they played Arkansas, where he just makes play after play if you throw the jump ball to him. He makes 50-50 balls look more like 70-30 in his favor. And when he initially committed to A&M, we had thought that this was the guy, and we were the same fans as Auburn were when he was coming in. This is a guy that can change your program. With Cam Coleman coming in, you had the previous, years of Evan Stewart already taking off. You had this exciting wide receiver core with the staff already, but that didn't work out with the previous regime. So now looking at it again, Cam Coleman entering the portal, you've already touched on already. We've been in constant communication back and forth where we were just a little bit more confused at why he entered or he's expected to enter the portal tomorrow. That now we're hearing that Alex Golish is not making new friends at Auburn right now.
Shocking.
Kind of he wants a blank slate over there. So I see Auburn fans kind of complaining that their, Fab Four wide receivers that they got in that 2024 cycle are just no longer with the program. So that includes Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, all of these elite wide receivers that they had. Even most of them are from Auburn's own backyard, like Cam Coleman, Phoenix City, Alabama. So I've had some people connect him to Alabama, Texas A&M. I've even had some Texas Tech fans being overly confident already. And with the money that they do have and they're willing to spend, it does make sense that they might go after him as well.
Sure.
So everybody and their mother is going to want an X type of receiver like Cam Coleman, is who can take the top off of defenses, but also is just a reliable target in the middle of the field. And the prospect of him coming to a team like A&M after the success that we've seen with Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion this past season, it really adds another level, because a lot of the offense this year with Colin Klein was, hey, Marcel Reed, get the ball to your playmaker quick so that they can make a play. We saw a lot of that with Casey Concepcion. Mario Craver was able to get those middle of the field routes where he could catch in stride and take off for another 10 yards. Cam Coleman is a little bit different. He's able to line up in that X slot where the Aggies were playing Ashton Bethel-Roman this season on that outside, where he did make a lot of plays. The one that comes back to me is the Arkansas touchdown catch, where you're like, all right, here's the coming out party for Ashton Bethel-Roman. Those are the type of plays that Cam Coleman is able to make consistently, given the right QB throwing him the ball. So I think that the prospect of Cam Coleman coming to A&M, I do think that there is a chance he does set up a visit. I'm just going to put that plainly and simple. Yeah. I think there's a definite chance, more than a chance, that he sets up a visit when the portal does open. So I'm interested in the prospect, but there are a lot of players going to be coming out this portal cycle. I mean, even players that are going to be coming out from college football playoff teams that we're kind of still waiting and seeing.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a familiarity there, right? Because I understand that this was a Jimbo Fisher guy. This was somebody Jimbo Fisher had recruited. I mean, I think you go back to like his freshman season or even earlier than that. They had a close relationship. Things kind of broke apart after Auburn, again, staying close to home, feeling that Hugh Freeze and Auburn were the right direction for him at that time, which I completely understand because, again, Auburn has a very deep, successful history well, I mean, I wouldn't say at that position, but developing players. I mean, look, everybody wants to play in front of that fan base. Is one of the best places to play in college football. I get the allure there. I really do. Also, Auburn scholastically is a very good school, so maybe that was a choice for him as well. But it's not going to be extremely difficult for him to look around the rest of the college football landscape and see a great landing spot at his next stop, knowing the quarterback play, knowing the systems that fit his skill set specifically. I just think that what A&M was lacking specifically was size at wide receiver, was a red zone target that I think A&M's red zone offense was just, I wouldn't say it was horrific this season, but it was just disjointed. I don't think they really knew their strengths in there. They did lack size. You saw a lot of forced passes to someone like Casey Concepcion, who's only 5'10". That height difference does kill you a lot of the time against bigger defensive backs who can just kind of figure you out. I was watching, we're watching the CFP quarterfinal game today with Oregon. It was a fourth down. He was kind of veering to his right, and then Texas Tech just had all that coverage there against smaller wide receivers. So it's very easy to block those guys out. But when you have a Cam Coleman, I mean, one-on-one, you can just fade it out. I mean, you can just go against try to match him up against a smaller cornerback. He's going to win that matchup every time. We saw that in that crazy Vanderbilt Auburn game this year. I mean, you throw even a crappy ball up to him, he's going to reel it in. Like, that's the thing. That's what makes him so incredible. And adding a guy like that to A&M's passing game next season, I'm telling you, all the stuff we talked about, Marcel Reed needing to take the next step, that's the next step. That's what's going to help him become a full-fledged SEC starting quarterback that you can trust in these type of moments, even though he was like that this year. But I just think, and we're not going to go back and talk about the wind that was affecting that game after watching how Miami kind of trounced Ohio State last night. But at the same time, there are specific size differences that were just kind of killing this offense when Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion weren't making hero-like plays, and Ashton Bethel-Robin wasn't really stepping up and making those tough catches. So having one more addition and then kind of fixing the rest of your offense, whether it's O-line, which we're going to get to that. We're going to really talk about that a lot of the. God, sorry guys, long weekend. Long week actually. I think it's Saturday today. Isn't that weird how these type of
feels like that, right?
It's Thursday. But fixing your line issues, adding more talented defensive line, making this a complete team, getting us a star player like that. I'm telling you, A&M will be back in the CFP next year because he's just that dynamic with the ball in his hands. And even though, and here's the thing, A&M limited him to what, like 3 catches this season?
I think so. Yeah.
It was one of his worst performances. He's familiar with how A&M's defenses play. Wouldn't you like to be on the other side of that, not have to face them and just play with them? That's how
I definitely would.
That's kind of how I look at it. And we can talk about like Texas being a great destination for him. We saw last night that Arch Manning basically had to win the game on his own with his legs because his wide receivers couldn't catch the ball most of the time. They have major wide receiver issues, even more than A&M does. I mean, A&M, to be honest with you, they don't have to land Kane Coleman to feel decent about their group with Mario Craver and Ashton Bethel-Roman coming back. But at the same time, you want to compete for a championship, so you have to get a player like this. We've seen that with the teams that are still contending for a championship this year. You have to get these type of star players at key positions. But that's going to be, obviously, we're going to hear everything about that. There's lesser names that are going to be important additions to A&M this in the transfer portal that I know we'll get to at the end of the show. But I really want to now kind of veer to talking about the roster, and we did that a little bit last week. Personally, I've been writing article after article about, what they need to approach first, how they need to attack the portal. But at the same time, I think we need to start with O-line. You and I both been talking about Ashton Funk and Blake Ivy, who are talented enough to play at or start at right guard or left guard this season. Do they need to go out and land 2 starting level offensive tackles? Because I do believe they need to do that. I just don't think that guard is as big of an issue right now. But I think maybe looking at more versatile guys who can play both positions, I think that needs to be where they need to focus first.
I think that you probably need to copy a little bit of what some of these other teams in the playoff are doing right now, at least from last portal cycle. Even though we did see A&M go after NFL draft-ready prospects, they kind of felt good with what they had in-house on that offensive line, so they really didn't take anybody. Mm-hmm. This year, you are losing NFL starting caliber offensive linemen Trey Zune, Ruben Fothery, Marjorie Adams, who just recently announced he's going to the NFL, which happy for him. But last cycle, when I saw Oregon take a prospect like Isaiah World, who was 6'7", over 305 pounds from Nevada. I mean, this is a kid who was not getting a lot of looks early on in high school, but quickly developed into one of the premier offensive line prospects for this upcoming draft in the portal. And he has been pretty dang good so far this season, helping Oregon go to the second round of the playoffs. And we saw it with Ohio State as well, who took Ethan Onyanwa as well from Rice, who was also getting a lot of draft buzz coming into this season. I think you need to find that guy in the portal for at least one of your starting spots. Because if you feel very good about one side you're able to have another developmental prospect on the other side, whether that is a Lamont Rogers, whether that is a Blake Ivy. So I think it's not imperative that they find that NFL draft ready tackle for that side. And looking at the portal so far, I don't know if I see one there yet. But there are definitely guys with NFL type bodies. And that might be where they're leaning towards, is people who are ready for the NFL, but not necessarily there yet with the tape.
Yeah, I mean, is it going to be like a one-year rental? That's how I kind of look at it. You look at a guy like Tyree Adams, for example, who entered from LSU. This is somebody who has dealt with some injury issues, but during the games he did play and did start, very proficient in pass protection. Not, again, a lot of these guys aren't the best run blockers. That's really similar with the guards. The guards are just better naturally, especially where they're positioned, and they're just the body type is different, especially if you're like a 6'7" kind of dancing bear. You're just better to get your kick step out, protect your quarterback, and then get back to the line of scrimmage. But there's a lot of guys in here that would make a lot of sense. Obviously, we're going to hear more coming out in the next week or so. This is just the start. I mean, the fact that, again, Cam Coleman entered this week is kind of shocking. I would have thought it would have come a little later. I thought he would have kind of thought it over a little bit, but obviously these guys now see what's happening. They see the college football playoff, how these teams are constructed. Like I said, it is crazy when you watch a team like Miami and what they did in the portal last year and how they've recruited, and getting a guy like Carson Beck, a quarterback who's been much maligned, but he made the tough plays when he had to. Having a guy like Keontae Scott, having a defensive line with 2 first-round NFL draft picks who have been developed, but at the same time, they knew that they were playing around other talent that were going to make each other better. You've got a guy like David Bailey for Texas Tech right now who's just dominating, who understood that he was going to join a very talented defensive line, including Lee Hunter, and that's just going to make you better. So getting star level, and that's going to be tough for O-line because everybody needs O-linemen, right? Everybody needs to replace just bad O-line play, but for A&M, they've been very blessed. You got to give Adam Cushing credit for his development prowess, for him kind of preparing to replace these guys in the future with recruiting, landing, I think it was 6 O-linemen in the 24 class. Mm-hmm. So they've got depth there, and they got guys they like. But I do agree with you. I think that when you do look at the tackle situation, you had a guy in Trezoon at left tackle who was built through the program, a 2020 recruit, 2019, I forget. But again,
Aggie for a while.
Yeah, Aggie legacy, kid out of Colorado, stuck to the process, went through the lean years. I think he started most of the games during even the 2022 season.
He did.
He was just a rock for this team. So losing him does hurt a lot because, again, when you have a quarterback like Marcel Reed, you do need good left tackle play. You do need a guy who you can trust. So how they're going to measure that and how they're going to look at a guy like Lamont Rogers, right? Because, again, 5-star talent, versatile lineman, can play guard, did play guard, I think, a little bit this season in those kind of reserve roles. He did come in mid-season a couple times. I'd have to look back how many snaps he actually played. But, again, that is somebody who can play tackle, who you can develop, but I don't know if you can trust him going into the season. So I think left tackle specifically is where you need to focus more. But improving the run game, which we've talked about a lot, Mike Elko is obviously very focused on that. Knowing that you're getting freshman running back KJ Edwards in this program next year, Ruben Owens is returning. Obviously, I'm blanking on the name right now. Another freshman. Oh, Jamari Morrow. Sorry. You've got enough depth there. You probably need to. That's actually where I'm going to go do next. I think that's the most interesting position outside of wide receiver right now is running back. But to wrap that up, I think getting bigger bodies inside, getting guys who have a lot of snaps on their resume, somebody you can trust to just be a day one starter, get into camp, be a leader. You don't have to teach them too much. That's the key there. And I don't think that's going to be too hard for A&M given the success they've had. I think O-linemen, especially Adam Cushing, staying with A&M after the rumors with Michigan State and all that, that's going to help this too, because I guarantee there's a long list of offensive tackles and even guards that are looking at A&M going, you know what, that could be a great destination for me to develop, get to the NFL, and have a long career, because I've seen other linemen who've gone to A&M in the past still in the NFL today. I mean, it's kind of crazy when I kind of look at some of the guys who I never thought would make it that long still playing today because of what they learned at A&M. So getting to running back, again, KJ Edwards is talented enough, in my opinion, to come in here and take the starting job. I'm not even kidding with what I've watched from his high school tape this season. He's that good. Don't know if that's really going to happen, because we do know Ruben Owens is coming back. Well, he hasn't officially announced, but he put a little video on social media, which kind of, I guess I kind of told us that he is returning. Jamari Morrow is guaranteed to come back here. You've got a lot of guys in, kind of reserve guys that are interesting, that, could move the needle this spring, but I still think that adding one more running back could be a good decision. But I'd love to know your opinion on that.
Let's talk about it. So let's analyze what they have in-house right now before the portal opens up tomorrow. So we saw Ruben Owens. We saw Jamarian Morrow. I mean, they're losing guys like Moss, Daniels, EJ Smith. So you're losing 3 running backs.
Yeah, I should have prefaced that, but I think people know already. Yeah, Le'Veon Moss did. I should say that he did officially declare for the NFL draft. That was assumed, obviously, but we all knew he was leaving. So at the same time, though, that's kind of what I'm veering towards is, do you go and get a guy like Le'Veon Moss, a physical running back, to pair with your other kind of speed guys? That's where I think they might focus, but I'd love to know your opinion on that.
I'm not sure yet, because I'm trying to put myself in the mind of what their coaching staff thinks right now. What is Trooper Taylor thinking? What is Mike Elko thinking? What is Holman Wiggins thinking? Where they are in running back, because you're losing 3 guys. You're gaining 2 from the freshman class in KJ Edwards and Carson Baker.
Yeah.
So losing 3, gaining 2. Do you think that they need another one? Because the guys on your roster, Ruben Owens, Jamarian Morrow, Tiger Ryden, is another name that is more of that bruising type when they took them in the 2025 class. So do I think personally that they need another one? I think the simple answer is I don't know. And until I know of a prospect that would be that type of guy in the portal who could be, I mean, I'm just going to throw a name out there that I don't think that they're going to go after, but people are going to turn heads at it anyway. I love Caleb Hawkins from North Texas, because he is a taller, heavier, shoulder to the ground kind of running back who brushes off the first tackle. So a running back who is on that taller side, above the height of like 6 foot. Most of your
He's
running
about 6'2", yeah.
Yeah. So guys like that, I mean, I think that a guy you're familiar with as well, Abu Sama from Iowa State, would be a very good prospect as well. I know he's listed at 5'11", but if you've seen him on the field, he really is closer to 6 foot.
He's big, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, one of those guys that, I've watched his entire career, obviously. And I think he'd be one of their best options. I personally think that Caleb Hawkins, the connection to Oklahoma State, I get it. But at the same time, he's going to get a lot of
calls from everywhere.
Yes, he's going to have his pick. Like Isaac Brown entering today, ooh baby. But that is a 5'7" running back who's a pure just speed demon. So I mean, I don't know if that's the approach they want to take. I get everybody wants someone like that, but you kind of already have those guys. You do expect that Jamarian Morrow, even though he's not Isaac Brown, could be that type of player for you. You also believe that Ruben Owens, who you've seen that top end speed, he has one more year to improve his footwork, especially, which was the biggest issue. Why we're even talking about running back right now is because of Ruben Owens' kind of issues in the backfield. But if he can take that next step, I don't think they're that worried. But I agree with you. I think A&M will call Caleb Hawkins. I think they will contact him and be like, hey, what are you looking for? You'd be a perfect fit in what we want to do here. Again, he might look at, I think he's trying to look at a contender too. That's the thing about these guys, right? Are they looking at contenders specifically, or are they just looking for NIL payouts where they can just go play somewhere and not have to worry about the finances, ball out, get that NFL tape ready, and go to the next level? That does happen too. We see that a lot with the transfer portal, which is kind of interesting, because I do think that like Cam Coleman specifically is looking at, I want to go to a contender, I want to go to the CFP, and I know I need a good quarterback who has already shown he can play at a high level. And so that's going to be interesting. But a guy like Abu Sama, for example, I think he just, I mean, with what they do and his physical level of play, especially when he's playing well and he's not hurt, he is one of the most physical backs in the country. He is somebody who I would target. I don't think he would cost them that much, to be honest with you. And I think he would be a perfect fit in what they want to do. And I think that would help a guy like Tiger Ryden continue to develop in this program, not have to be on the field, at an excessive amount just because they don't have the depth or anything like that. Because they do worry about injuries at this position. They have had those problems in the past. I don't know if they're scarred by Le'Veon Moss's injury issues, but who knows? I mean, it's been kind of crazy. It's like the quarterback injury bug that A&M had for a long time that's finally kind of died out with Marcel Reed staying healthy the entire year. But I think I think this is a position they might want to load up on because they do feel, again, I hate to reference them again, but Miami. You look at Miami's backfield, like how they utilize the run game. They built their whole lineup. Mark Fletcher basically won that game for them yesterday again, just because of the way he runs, his vision, his footwork, his physicality, getting it back like that, and having that type of offense. That's just going to help Marcel Reed become a better quarterback. That is going to help you become a very scary offense that's going to have defenses kind of scrambling of how to defend you because, again, you have a dual threat quarterback. Just remember that. He can use his legs. So if you have that and you have a healthy running game that doesn't have to worry about one guy getting injured and everything falls apart, which was kind of the case with Le'Veon Moss even this year, which was crazy, I think that's what they want to avoid. So I could see that being an option.
Yeah, I definitely could. But it just feels about what is the comfortability level you have with the running backs you're bringing in. Yeah. So I think we heard Mike Elko at the end of the college football playoff game say that they are going to evaluate every single level of player they have on the roster. And we're kind of already seeing that with guys who have already left. We didn't know to what level a guy like Jordan Pride would be playing, for example. We didn't know what level that was going to be this next season. And I think they're continuing to make those evaluations as we even go towards transfer portal opening. I think they're still ongoing because that takes a while.
Yeah.
Right. So now you assess the portal. Who are the players that are going to be expected to be in already? Because in an age like this where we know tampering does happen, even though it's a little bit weird with how tampering works, there are players already who we've seen kind of re-sign with their programs. I mean, a guy who I was very, very high on, who I thought if he were to enter A&M would have been purely in the mix, was Dallas Wilson from Florida.
Yeah.
So it's players like that who you think might enter, but their NIL collectives at their current teams are very desperately making those evaluations and meeting with those people. It takes a good bit. Sometimes we see players go into the portal to leverage their collectives and saying, hey, we don't have much of a backup behind you. So it puts a little bit of a hindrance on that team. So where could we see A&M move first in terms of visits? I think of visits might already be planned for this weekend. Hint, hint. I think that could happen immediately following the transfer.
There's a basketball game, so that's a good opportunity.
Exactly. And I will be at that basketball game. So if I have anything live on the scene, I will let everybody know.
He'll let me know, and then he'll let you know. I'm just kidding. That's how it works.
In all fairness, we have to let the friends know first.
Yeah.
And then
I'm kidding. But it is great, and we talk about, it's like recruiting with junior days and stuff like that. Like, it's the same with the portal. Like, they're going to set these up immediately. That's why, that's why I thought it was like the weekend. I'm kind of like, you could tell at the beginning of this podcast. But with the portal opening Friday, we're going to immediately hear things. And then you go into Saturday, and it's going to just shoot off from there.
Like, who knows? Maybe I get to that basketball game on Saturday, and I see Rocco Becht sitting next
yeah, I don't know about that.
Definitely not happening. But I bring that up as like something that would be hilarious to happen to us.
There will be some new.
Wouldn't be the first time I've seen players secret visits at basketball games. I'll just let y'all know. So I'll tell you what. So what I've challenged both of us for today is our next segment, which is, hey, we need to go in depth. Who are these players that are expected to enter the portal? we need to bring 3 guys to the table. So I think what we want to do is kind of bounce these off of each other. We have not talked before this about these guys. These aren't necessarily fully realistic, but we could definitely see the entire world and our reasoning behind why A&M would be interested, and guys we think would be at the top of their list in a perfect world in our own brain. So I think is that kind of what you got from that conversation, Cameron?
Yeah, because I think we both, again, the news surrounding a lot of these guys has been intel from On3 rivals, others who have been kind of gauging the interest in the transfer portal. But again, once the portal opens, we'll hear a lot more. But these are where these guys fit and how they can basically just transition easily. And when you talk about fit and all that kind of stuff, we've already discussed like A&M's O-line. We talked about Cam Coleman. We haven't really talked about even tight end, which we'll get to as well. But yeah, I think that both you and I are kind of differing with who we think they're going to land. But right now, I think these are just the best options for them right now.
Okay. Do you want to go first? Because I know you have some candidates in your back pocket that you're kind of like, that would be very intriguing. And I'm interested to hear your first one because it's probably the one you've put the most time into.
So the first one, and we got a report last week, was Florida State defensive back Edwin Joseph, who I'm very big on just by the way he plays. I wouldn't say he's like a Keontae Scott, but he's somebody who could be that level of player for A&M. He can play nickel. He can play in the box. He's a bigger defensive back, and he has a ton of production, and he is one of Florida State's best players overall. And I think that at nickel right now, you think Jordan Shaw can take that next step, maybe replace Tyreek Chappelle. Obviously, is leaving the program. His eligibility is finally expired after 5 seasons, which is kind of incredible. But you think Shaw can be that next starting nickel, but at the same time, you just want more physicality, and especially against the run. I think Edwin Joseph is one of the best run defenders as well. He has just instincts against the run. He can fit those gaps. He's not afraid to put his head down. That's somebody who I'm really, really high on. I think Elko is really trying to get an early start with him because there's going to be a lot of appeal there. But 2 of my other guys are pretty easy. I think Cohen Eccles, who's the LSU guard, obviously former A&M commit. I just think he's an easy slot in at either left guard or right guard. Played left guard for majority of the 2025 season. Pretty reliable, has dealt with some injury issues in the past, but a reliable pass protector. We had talked about in this past, obviously, that he's been much better in big games, which means, again, he gets up for the big ones, which is good for any O-lineman. Sometimes they struggle, and others. Armaj Reed Adams is kind of like that as well. And I got it for the bigger ones, kind of struggled a little bit in the lesser matchups. But I think that's just a perfect shoe-in starting level O-lineman that will just kind of put them at ease, and they can focus on other positions. And lastly, I think you'll like this one. I've talked about that in the past. You told me to watch him. Brody Foley, the tight end from Tulsa, 6'6", 230, big boy, great receiver. He had over 500 yards receiving this year, I believe. I had to look back. But losing Theo Malin-Olstrom, losing Nate Berkshire, losing Amar Niblack as well. I mean, your tight end room is going to be a completely different. Coley
Fayu?
Yachty
Armstrong.
Thank you. I think he could end up competing for the starting job. I think he's talented enough, especially as a receiver, but I think they need a more experienced guy who can also inline block. I just think that his size, his receiving ability, I think that gives Marcel Reed another big target in the passing game, especially if they can't land someone like Cam Coleman. Getting a bigger tight end with receiving ability that is great on third down, just a big target, I think that's going to help them a lot. So those are my 3 guys right now. That's going to change pretty immediately. But either way, I think that those are the guys that they could easily approach, get a deal done faster than some others.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the prospect of a guy like Brody Foley because of the success he's been able to have at Tulsa, where you talk about certain prospects that come out of non-Power 4 schools, and usually those are your exact one specialist type of players, where we see we see a lot of success from NFL wide receivers who come from lower level schools, right? We see a lot of success, all those players that make the Hall of Fame. I know Randy Moss. I mean, you can think of all these guys that even at the time where they were coming out of college, you could tell something was awesome about them, but you couldn't quite put your finger on them. So Brody Foley is one of those kids where I have watched a good bit of tape on him since he was one of the first players to kind of enter the portal from the, pass catching receiver tight ends. And Foley just kind of jumps out at being a potential NFL level tight end prospect, and would kind of fit what A&M's tight ends have done in the past. I think I'm not going to necessarily say like Caleb Chapman was a tight end, but it's one of those big type of receivers that A&M had where, hey, I wonder if I could just high point this ball and he could go get it. I think Foley is definitely one of those tight ends. So I really like your selections. I mean, going off of Cohen Eccles, who was once an A&M commit, but obviously flipped to LSU amid all the Jimbo Fisher and A&M non-success at the time. So Cohen Eccles is interesting to me because out of high school, he's really looked at more of an interior offensive lineman. And there was a lot of discussion of whether it might be better for him to move long-term outside or maybe even to center. So A&M has Mark Naboo most likely for this next season starting at center. I would assume that in your mind as well, Mark Naboo would be at that center spot, right?
Yeah, I don't see anybody really. I mean, outside he's had some health issues, but I think he's slotted in the starting center. I think they might. I think that you could easily see one of their 2025, 2024 signees kind of elevate to be a backup there, but they're going with Mark Naboo. They trust him too much, and I think he's kind of the anchor right now for their O-line.
And I think in the run game too, for people who rely a lot on PFF grades, kind of like what I do, Mark Naboo's run grade was pretty dang impressive this past season.
It was.
So I would expect if Cohen Eccles were to go to a team, he'd stay at interior offensive lineman, maybe at that left guard spot. It just LSU just wasn't the play this past year. We saw their failures kind of all over the place, especially with Connor Wigman proving that he is a 5-star prospect in the full game.
He owns LSU, yeah. Oh man.
But yeah, I really like the three that you bring to the table. I think that they all make sense for what A&M's tried to do. So
I think the scouting too, that's my last point, is I love to know your players, but I think the scouting is easier for Elko there. I think every O-lineman, including Kern, who also entered, he's seen all these guys play. He knows what their strengths are. He knows that they're going to fit in this O-line room. He knows that a guy like Carius Kern, who, like we've said, can play left tackle, could play left tackle, probably a year from now if he just gets a little better, but he could slot in a guard immediately and you could feel good about him there. You played these guys, you've watched the tape. It's just an easy evaluation. I think when you go out of conference, it's a little tougher. You have to find that tape. You have to really look at outside of running backs. I think that's always an interesting position because a guy like Isaac Brown, you just see like explosive play. And you think, okay, he's a perfect fit for anybody. But other guys, you do have to really watch the film, look at what he brings to the table on third down, for example, on pressure situations, especially in the run game. But I just like him. I just think that he's kind of like Foley, to be honest. He just kind of takes you to that next level of what you can be, and especially not having to drop off tremendously at that position. It just makes everything easier going to the spring.
Yeah, for sure makes everything easier. I mean, he played these teams, LSU, in their house. You know how they operated in that game. So it'll be interesting to see where they go even as soon as this next week. So I might lean a little bit closer towards keeping an eye on Cohen Eccles just because he was an A&M commit at one point. So there's definitely a connection there. So I think the first guy I'm going to bring up is Florida edge Jaden Woods. I think when I watched Florida this year, and I watched a good bit of them because I thought they were going to be better than what they were to start the season. And I watched Jaden Woods come in against a Miami team that we're now seeing Miami was just a lot better than everybody thought they would be, especially on the defensive side, considering Miami's team last season was, or defense last year was abysmal. But Florida, their defense broke down a little bit more towards the end of the season, but everybody was kind of saying, oh, these stars along the offensive side, Vernell Brown, Dallas Wilson, DJ Lagway, even Jaden Baugh, has been kind of the rock solid piece for Florida. People were going, these guys are going to be stars. And Vernell Brown, I think, ended up being freshman all SEC honors at the end of the season because of how impressive he was with the roster that Florida had put together. But I was very interested on that freshman side to see Jaden Woods, who I believe is a kid from Kansas.
Shawnee Hills. Well, actually lived near there a little bit, a long time ago. Yeah, he's going to be highly coveted as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy, he came in, had a sack in that Miami game against a really good Miami offensive line. 28 total tackles on the season, 3 QB hurries, I believe an interception too. And he was third on Florida's team in sacks as a true freshman with 3.5 sacks, which doesn't sound like a lot when you say it out loud, but you got to remember this was a Florida team that already struggled to prevent rushing the ball with their defensive linemen already. So when applying that QB pressure, QBs were able to kind of have their way with how A&M beat them, which was get the ball to your playmakers early. So that's kind of why those stats stick out like that. But Jaden Woods would be a guy along the defensive line where you and I have talked before on the show where they're going to replace a couple of guys. I mean, we believe Dayon Hayes is going to have to be fully replaced. Cassius Howe is going to have to be fully replaced. They're bringing back guys like TJ Searcy and Marco Jones who have shown incredible promise. I know Marco Jones specifically has been the apple of their eye when it comes to the defensive line. But Jaden Woods is also a guy that you should do your due diligence on and take a flyer on, because I think that he has shown the prospect of being able to play high-level SEC ball and be able to be an effective pass rusher as a true freshman. And I've seen a lot of true freshmen already enter the portal, with kind of the star freshman Chaz Coleman from Penn State. You've seen a couple other guys. I know Cameron Morgan from Baylor is another one that pops to mind as someone who's had a pretty good season so far for them. So London Merritt is another one from Colorado, who very talented kid coming out of Atlanta. And when Dion got him, was like, hey, that might be a guy where you play him at outside linebacker type of Micah Parsons role where you can just let him run free at edge rusher.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested on Jaden Woods. So kind of let me know your thoughts on that one, because am I crazy for thinking that? Because I think that he is one of those kids that you got to take a flyer on and take a chance.
No, I mean, you're echoing all the national guys out there. I mean, they said this kid's going to get a lot of attention. Obviously, they've had success. TJ Searcy was great this year. I think in a role where a lot of people weren't paying attention too much because he wasn't a rotation, he was fantastic. The fact that he is deemed to come back, I think is great for their depth. I think having a guy and understanding that Florida has produced a lot of these great defensive linemen, a lot of these edge rushers that are maybe just on bad teams, to be honest with you, because you did say the defense did break down at the end of the season. When you have a bad offense and your team sucks, look, credit to Auburn, for example, their team was bad. The defense kept playing hard throughout the year, outside of a couple games where they just the offense kind of played a little better than them. But I get it. I mean, and I think getting in just a new scenery, going into a defense where under Mike Elko and now Lyle Hemphill, who, look, man, we need to spend a little time probably next week just talking about how good we think Lyle Hemphill is going to be. I think a lot of people are still a little mad that they elevated from inside, but and didn't go out and get somebody else. I just think that's kind of ridiculous. I think that getting these type of talented players who are just reaching their ceiling. I mean, he had 27 tackles last year, 3.5 this year, 3.5 sacks, forced fumble, interception. He can do it all. You just lost Ryland Kennedy to the transfer portal. You're losing Solomon Williams to the transfer portal. You're losing edge depth there. So getting a guy like that who already has a full season under his belt, 6'3", nearly 250 pounds, he's a perfect fit for what you want to do there. And you need some of these bigger bodies to fill out that defensive line group because you know that Mike Elko doesn't like to go with the same rotation over and over. Last night, watching Ohio State and Miami, both those defensive lines rotated in. And Miami, obviously, they just have a deeper defensive line. So that's how you win. You got to have more depth there. You got to have guys you can trust. And I think Jaden Woods is a fantastic prospect right now. And especially for a defense that is looking for, I don't know, you tell me, 2 guys at least, maybe 3. I mean, they really want to load up here because they know that it's helped them in the past. But I think they want to get immediate impact guys. And I think Woods has already shown he can be like that.
Yeah. Just an incredible prospect already out of a true freshman. So I think the next guy I'm thinking about is, actually just something popped to mind is A&M keeps taking, defensive linemen and linebackers from Florida.
Yeah. It's a trend.
I mean,
there's kind of a trend with Bateman there, but I mean, we'll see if that continues because obviously he was linebacker coach. So I understood that, but
yeah. So next guy, speaking of linebackers, I think that a guy entered yesterday who I am super, super intrigued about is Rasheem Biles from Pitt. So Rasheem Biles is a 6'2" linebacker who's had a whole host of production, spending 3 years at Pitt so far. I think he's racked up over like 180 total tackles in his time there in 3 years. So that's like 30. He has 31 and a half TFLs in 3 years. So that is just an average of 10 per season so far. He has 10 sacks in his career at Pitt. And I think he has 3 interceptions too, which are all pick sixes. So two of them were from this season, but I think the first one was, if you remember the Syracuse game where I believe their QB, the transfer from Ohio State that year, threw 5 picks.
Oh, yeah.
3 of them were pick sixes, which I think that was the first one. But this past season, he has been elevating his game from the previous 2 exponentially. I mean, this is a guy who was outside the top 100 linebackers in his class 3 years ago. But this past season, he had 101 total tackles, 17 TFLs, and 4.5 sacks just this past season. So I think that's a guy who people aren't going to turn their heads just right now, just because he's just entered the portal. But I think from a guy who we've seen Elko take before, he likes that production along the defensive side, regardless of where you've come from. We saw BJ Mays, who had the production at UAB before he came to A&M at DB. We saw Scooby Williams, who had the production so far, maybe not the full extent of where he was recruited at for Florida, but when he came in, he was able to get those defensive numbers back up and eventually declare for the NFL. I think Rasheem Biles, who is one of those guys who's a 1-year rental prospect in the linebacker room. And I think you'd be feeling very good about where your linebackers would be with potentially getting Torian York back if he doesn't announce for the NFL. Damian Sanford, who has looked stellar from this entire past season, especially as a pass coverage linebacker. I think you and I agree he was a great pass coverage linebacker this past season. And then Noah McHale, who kind of really stood out in a couple of those games near the end of the season. He even got a lot of playing time during that Miami game, seeing over 10 snaps or 10 or 15 snaps in that game against them. So if you bring in a guy like Rasheem Biles, potentially, who earned third-team All-ACC honors in 2024 and was a second-team guy in 2025, you're getting that production to line up and switch out those linebackers, where that's what the complaint about in the run game was the final couple of games of the season, where Miami put up 170 rushing yards on you. It was really when those running backs got to the second level, they weren't being brought down.
Yeah.
So Rasheem Biles is one of those production guys where he has the sure tackle ability. And I think that they would appreciate it a lot if they had an experienced guy like that, just able to rotate in and out.
Yeah. And I think, I didn't watch a ton of Pitt this year. I know they always produce those type of linebackers. We do remember like Solomon Shields for example, so confused, that he didn't really pan out here as much. He had some injury issues, but again, a very hardworking player. These are pure football guys. They just want to come in, produce, and stop the run, which is very important to this team right now. Is that if you want to fix your problems defensively, it starts in the trenches. It starts with linebacker play and getting guys and being able to rotate bigger bodies in there to stop these physical running backs. And because we have seen teams now, and we go back to even Missouri, where both those guys had over 100 yards rushing. Yes, A&M had a big lead in that game, but they still tore them up. And it was kind of like foretelling of, okay, this is going to be a problem for them in a game that's going to be close, which we saw against Texas and we saw against Miami. That's why Mike Elko is so focused completely on fixing this problem. But I think that starts with getting bigger players at this position, getting guys who have produced at a high level and someone you can trust. That's the thing. Trust is a big thing with these guys. Torrin York, you can trust him on sniffing out screens and, racking up tackles and maybe getting in the backfield here and there. But at the same time, the run fits have been bad on his end. He's had some good games, but he's had some really, really bad games. And getting him back would be huge because you're just getting a senior guy, a senior you can trust in that, especially against the pass. He's been very proficient there, but he is a smaller linebacker, and I think that's hurt them a lot. I think that, I'm going to be honest, if he did declare for the NFL, I think that just kind of opens it up more for them to bring in two starting level linebackers that they can pair with Sanford and McHale and feel pretty good about it. I think if York does decide to stay one more season, you probably go get one guy, somebody you can see as a starter to replace Scooby Williams in that area. But it just makes sense. I mean, there's going to be a lot of these guys coming out. They will have their pick, but getting the right guy, getting the guy who has never had an issue in run defense, has never been out of place, has never shied away from sticking his head in that gap and stopping that guy right when he gets to the second level. Getting a guy like that is key because I'm not saying that Scooby Williams, if he was healthy throughout the year, would have completely changed their run defense. It would have helped, though. I mean, you just didn't have the guys for it. I do think Noah McHale can be that type of player. I've seen him in some of the snaps. He's a very physical backer. He's somebody who he's going to get bigger this offseason and try to earn a starting or high rotational spot. But we'll see. I mean, I think it all hinges on Torrin York announcement if he's going to return or declare. But I think they'll have a pretty good strategy there of who they want to take a look at. Yeah,
that's definitely where I would think that it all hinges on. Does Torrin York come back or not? We don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Trey Zune hasn't actually announced his NFL
technically draft. No, but I think he's out of eligibility.
Which is weird. I'm just like, everybody else has, but he's just kind of waiting. But we assume,
we're assuming that he does.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I don't think he can come back anyways. I don't think he has eligibility. So I mean, unless he sues the NCAA or something like that. But that's not.
I mean, we've seen NCAA grant injunctions before where
Diego Pavia. Did he sue again?
We don't know.
Okay,
it could be happening behind the scenes, but you never know.
Maybe he'll be playing college football when I'm in my mid-30s. Who knows? Maybe he'll play forever.
You know what? I hope so.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but that's good. That would just piss off the incoming freshman quarterback that Vanderbilt landed. So. Either way, let's move on. So I do want to say. I think you kind of stumped me with that one. I had to go kind of look him up because I really didn't watch Pitt a ton this year. But yeah, that I might be writing an article about that. Maybe get some eyeballs on somebody like that because that's the type of linebacker. That's the type of player that would immediately fix these issues. I think outside of Elijah Robinson coming in as a co-defensive coordinator and defensive line coach, getting that defensive line in order, getting more talent in there, but fixing that linebacker issue is going to be key. And I think that's the type of dude that can really get that done.
I mean, the last person I'm going to talk about is really quick, is a tight end. Houston Thomas from UTSA. I mean, this is the connection. He is from College Station High School here in College Station. He's a 6'4" tight end, 220 pounds. That speaks for itself. I think that was the name that some people have made connections for, but I really do think that the hometown kid might be open to returning home to College Station.
And Mike Elko knows him very well. He graduated with his son in College Station. Michael Elko is now playing baseball, I think, in Richmond.
Something like that.
Yeah, but know him very well. Obviously, he's very close right now. Like, it'd be very easy to bring him in, tell him how they're going to use him. He's been a pretty good tight end. He's been a very good receiver. I think his 2024 season was his best. I think he had over 400 yards receiving or something like that. So, again, another big body dude who can block. He's just a good overall football player. I think that would be probably one of the easiest transfer additions they could get,
right,
just on the relationship. So I wouldn't be shocked if that's the first name we hear. And I think fans would be happy about that, because I think after getting Nate Burkitcher last year, did not move the needle at all. Everybody's like, well, this guy's just a blocker. But you saw what you got in him. So if you get that tight end room cleaned up a little bit, you do trust Keati Armstrong. I think I'm really big. I wrote an article about him even before the 25 season about how high I am on Keati Armstrong. I think he can be the leader of that room next year. But I think that getting another veteran guy in there, that Holman Wiggins, I think, is going to want to play that 12 personnel look. He's going to want to run the ball at a high amount, but he's also going to probably add some new wrinkles in with the wide receivers and utilize the speed there. But I think having those tight ends you can trust, I think Keati Armstrong's a perfect fit for a Klein or Wiggins offense. But I think getting a Thompson in there who you can just very reliable, especially on third down, one of those sure catch guys, sure hands guys, I think that's just a slam dunk if they can get that done. But I think having those prior relationships are big. I think that knowing Mike Elko on a personal level, that's going to help a ton with whoever he brings in.
Yeah.
So, so we got 3 minutes here. I do want to move on because we're going to be talking about portal. I mean, even next Tuesday, we're going to hear news already. So we're going to be talking a ton about that. This was just kind of the intro into it. We do know for going to Aggie basketball right now, they're hosting LSU this weekend, coming off of another 100-plus point win in non-conference play. They're currently 10-3. The news is that Mackenzie Mbako is going to miss the rest of the regular season, and it stings. But you and I had some pretty deep conversations about this. Obviously, I trust your basketball acumen more than most. Immediately, I was kind of pissed because as someone who covers A&M, I think all of us want to have an enjoyable season. We don't want to see injuries ever. We don't want anything to be an excuse for a team that we had to go, well, it would be better if he wasn't injured, because it makes for crappy journalism in a way. But at the same time, I don't see this as a Wade Taylor type of issue. And I've told you that multiple times, that when Wade Taylor under Buzz Williams was out of any game, this offense couldn't score. They didn't have an identity. I think under Buck McMillan, knowing that all these transfers are new to this team, they've been gelling throughout the year. And even though Mbako did play 7 games and did make an impact, he was averaging over 10 points, almost 5 rebounds. Obviously, he's a big body, efficient shooter, somebody you can trust. Taking him out of the lineup hurts a ton. But at the same time, I think that they still have the star players. And I think, like you said, they're probably going to play small ball going forward and focus on efficient offense, rebounding at high level. But I think Rashawn Agee is just going to – he's now Mackenzie Mbako. He is now the most important player on this team right now. And I think that Bucky McMillan kind of stated that after the game, just thinking, you know what, we're going to need him to play 20-plus minutes in this game, but we still believe our rotation can get it done. But I'll tell you, Cannon, why he was such a good hire is how blunt he was after, basically saying this is going to hurt us. He's not sugarcoating. He's not going, oh, next man up. He's just going, look, we're going to have to change the way we play. And I'll be honest, if I'm an Aggie fan, anybody else out there who's maybe thinking, oh, man, are we going to suck? Are we going to be bad in SEC play? Just wait. Because I think
it's too early to tell.
I think it's way too early. I agree.
Like, if I told A&M fans right now in year one, would you take 7+ wins in the SEC out of, I believe, 18 games, right? Mm-hmm. Are you taking just under half? Would you take that? Because I think
that's the thing. Even with Mbako in the lineup, that's what's crazy to me. I knew that he was an impact player, but I knew he was a little hindered from that injury. I didn't think he was going to be out for the year, but I do think he was going to miss games. I think I could just see he just wasn't playing at that level. I think it was hindering him a lot. And especially this being a new offense and the way they wanted to play versus the way they now have to play. Yeah, that's where I kind of look. I see them as a middle of the pack team. I think I sent you that tweet from John Patterson. We got to get on the show sometime. I love that guy. But he kind of said it perfectly. Like, this is going to be one of those weird teams that will be in like a really tight game where it's just back and forth, and they're, shooting 50% from the field and hitting a ton of threes, but they're not. But the other team's breaking their press and they're scoring as well, and they could get blown out in a couple because they just don't match up well, or they're not shooting at a high level, and they can't play the way they want to. So I could totally see that, because in the Buzz Williams regime, it was defense, rebounding. That's it. And Wade Taylor has to score. He has to be our leading scorer for us to have a chance in those games. Now it's completely different, but you just have more guys that can score the ball, and they can score, 10, 15 points a game than you did in the previous regime. But at the same time, it's just a completely different outlook. But I do believe that in the SEC, it's top heavy this year. I think someone like Vanderbilt is very dangerous. I don't think Kentucky.
They're more than dangerous, my friend.
Yeah, I don't think Kentucky's that great, though. I think Alabama's good. I wouldn't call them elite right now, but looking at, and I've watched some of these, I'm going to watch them even more going into the winter, obviously, when we really start ramping up the coverage of basketball. But I think A&M has a chance to make a dent. I think they have a chance to compete in most of these games if they continue to stay healthy with what they have. I think he just trusts his depth. But I agree with you. I think that they were always kind of a middle of the pack team that could be a bubble team throughout the season. I think that still remains the same. We just have to see on Saturday. LSU's 12-1. Again, 12-1 doesn't really mean anything when you don't play a lot of teams in the non-conference. But at the same time, they are a respectable team. They did struggle against Prairie View A&M, who A&M blew out the other night. So I think that's really going to show us who this team is, who they're going to be throughout the season, even though he may change some things up. But small ball it is. And I'm excited, to be honest with you.
Rashawn Agee is about to turn into Joel Embiid at the free throw line.
Yeah, and that's going to be fun to watch. I just think that they have enough to at least make it interesting. That's how I look at it. If you're out there saying the season's over or whatever, you really didn't know this team anyways. I'm going to be blunt. You didn't. You're just saying that because one player's out. Because it's just not the same thing. This isn't the Buzz Williams era. And they went out and got all these transfer portal players to make sure that if they did lose somebody, they could still try to get through the year and not have to, be in the dumpster. I've watched a lot of bad A&M basketball in the past, mostly under Buzz Williams. So I'm very intrigued to what I hope to see with Bucky McMillan. So that's going to be a big game. I think if they can beat LSU and then get off to a hot start, they've got some very tough games in the beginning start of SEC play, but I believe in them. I'm just going to say it. I mean, I'm not going to change my tune until they are consistently losing, or they're just looking like they don't have an identity. But right now, I think that they did what they had to do. They've set records for scoring this year already, which I don't know how that's just going to stop all of a sudden against better competition. I don't get that argument. I've heard that from people. It's like, well, you're scoring that against non-conference. Buzz Williams could barely score 70 points against those games.
Yeah. That's just bar none how it is. It's more fun. It looks better. You're able to score. It's just, are you able to score at the level of the SEC? Exactly.
And we'll find that out pretty quickly because SEC play is going to ramp up as soon as Saturday. So we should talk about our betting sponsor. Obviously, we have a game. We have a CFP game coming up in the Rose Bowl. Right now, it is 16-0 Oregon.
Yeah, right now I've got it on in the background. Texas Tech right now has been pretty much shut out in terms of yardage, points per game.
It's over. There are 2 minutes left.
But our next game right now in the college football playoff, in the Rose Bowl, Alabama versus Indiana in Pasadena. So when you're seeing this, most likely you're going to have a bunch of other games come out, or the game tonight is the one I'm really, really intrigued at. I mean, Georgia, Ole Miss.
Rematch.
Another rematch.
Close game too.
But yeah,
game in the regular season.
Our sponsor, Underdog, has been great in providing updates even for like NBA, if that's what your jam is, they provide updates for you as well. So we actually have a promo going on for Underdog, which is if you actually use the code VOCFB Aggies on Underdog and play $5 after you deposit, you actually just get $50 straight into your account, which pretty dang cool if you just want some extra, something extra sprinkled onto your new 2026 year. I know I've been able to kind of play around with a couple of game props. I've been taking a lot of hires on a lot of rebounding for some NBA big men. It's been working out pretty well for me so far. But yeah, if y'all are interested in using our sponsor Underdog, definitely use our code VOCFB Aggies. And if you just play $5, you get $50 in bonus.
Yep. And as always, if you have a gambling problem, you can always call 1-800-GAMBLER. It's going to be interesting. I think that Alabama has a chance in that game if they can protect Ty Simpson. I think they have a chance, but if they do not protect Ty Simpson, I could see Indiana just rolling over. They're a 7.5-point favorite right now, which is kind of rich for me. But at the same time, I think, after watching what Miami did, just the way they play, they kind of think Indiana is kind of similar. They're a little smaller. I loved how I think Nick Saban said this morning, almost every one of their defensive starters is a 3-star prospect, which is insane. That is insane that they be able to. That's just pure coaching. Signetti is just a boss. But I think that's going to be the best game of the day. It's kind of funny. My dad texted me. He said, "I guess Tech was overrated." I was like, well, I don't know. I think it's just the curse of those buys. I think that A&M next year should, try to play in a first round again. I think trying to get a buy doesn't help anybody.
So we could see every single team,
one so far. Yeah, there's not been one yet, which is nuts because you got to think Ohio State last year was a first round game and they blitzed through everybody. They blitzed Oregon.
They played Tennessee and
Tennessee. They played in the first.
All of these teams going up against, and the Notre Dame did give them a good fight. But last year we saw that. I mean, I have no idea who might even win this year.
It's just weird. No, and I think my thing is like Miami is a great example of that because they play, and we talked about it last night that A&M gave them their biggest challenge defensively. They really shut down the passing game. I get the win was a problem, but that was their biggest challenge. It came down to the last couple of plays, really the last play after more sort of through that interception. But their defense stood strong, and then they go in against a Ohio State team who I think was woefully overrated. I mean, how they didn't even move down a spot, or like they moved down one spot. I don't know. I can get that. CFP rankings are so stupid, but they looked one-dimensional. I mean, you saw Julian Sand basically the only reason they had 14 points was because he has such an elite wide receiver rotation that those guys are just getting open all the time. He has to throw a semi-accurate pass. But a team like Miami that's just gritty and just stacked on defense at every level, and you have a quarterback that's playing tough, you're going to have a better chance to beat these teams. And I think Texas Tech was, really taking, really feeling themselves a little too much. I think their fan base was really feeling themselves via social media. But
I'm really hyped to see who ends up coming out on top in all these games. So
yeah, it's just funny. I think it's just hilarious because when you talk a lot of crap, and look, A&M fans did that. I get it. Not a lot of them, but some of them did. But when you talk a lot of crap and then you lose, you get goose egged, which could be could be 16-0. Goose egged. You're going home, going back to Lubbock. Probably don't do that. Just play the season out because I guarantee A&M fans next year, if we see this team get back to the CFP, it's going to be zip it up because we saw what happened last year. So just enjoy the ride and hope we can win a playoff game. So, we will be back on Tuesday, I believe, probably regular time.
I believe so,
yes. We'll work that out, unless – because I don't know when they play because I don't know the basketball schedule. If there is a game, I don't know. I don't think that's at –
I think it's out of town on –
it's a road. Yeah,
against Auburn.
It's Auburn on the road, yep. So, we should be back regular time. We'll have a lot to talk about. Obviously, the transfer portal is just going – I mean – getting ready. My fingers are going to hurt at the end of this month with writing all the updates and stuff like that. So it's going to be fun though, because I think you and I both agree that this team is ready to take that next step. They believe that Elko dominated the portal over the last 2 seasons, obviously getting Concepcion and Craver last year, building that defensive line back up. I don't see any reason why he can't do that again. And I really do think the fan base is fully behind him. And they do believe that he's going to get star players in here to prevent drop-off and contend for a second consecutive season. So, again, that's why they signed him to an extension. He's got to prove that in the portal. He's already proven it on the recruiting trail, so it's going to be fun to watch. So
it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So, as always, you can follow me at Cameron Honesty on X. You can follow Cannon at Torres. You can follow all my work at Aggies Wire. We're going to be very busy. We're doing a lot of news updates. That's really what we're doing throughout the month, but we will start to veer into – I've used veer in like 20 times today. And it's not my best podcast, but basketball coverage, baseball starting in February, softball starting soon. There's a ton of stuff going on. If you're an Aggie and you're in the area, there's going to be a ton to do. I mean, even though football season's over, even though it really isn't, this is when football season really starts, in my opinion, when you're starting to build these rosters. There's a ton to do in College Station. So, as always, gig 'em, and we'll be back next Tuesday, guys.